Hello everybody, Joel Tadman here from Golf Monthly. I hope you're well. You joined me here at a very sunny Bishopsgate Academy just outside Orlando, Florida, where I have been testing the best fairway woods in 2019. Now, the fairwood has to do a lot of different jobs, and it's arguably one of the clubs that goes under the radar in a lot of people's bags. Maybe they get custom fitted for the driver and they like the driver, so they add on the fairwood along with it without maybe testing it as much as they should do. Whereas, if you get the right fairwood for your game, it can be a really versatile option and can get you out of a lot of trouble, especially when the driver's not misbehaving or on par fives when you really need to make a birdie. If you've got a solid fairwood in the bag, that can really make the difference. So I've tested a variety of different models here today over the last kind of few days, put them through its paces in a variety of different scenarios, and I'm going to kind of share with you how I went about doing that and coming to my conclusions. So as you know, there's an awful lot of variety out there, but these are 6 of my favourites. So we've got the Mizuno ST190 TS, we've got the Ping G410, we've got the Callaway Epic Flash, we've got the Cobra King F9 Tour model, we've got the Titleist TS3, and we've got the TaylorMade M5. Now you'll notice some of these models are the Tour options or the low spin options, just because those are the types of heads that I would be leaning towards for my swing speed and the kind of ball flight and launch conditions I want to see, but only where the samples were available. I did actually test some additional models as well for this test on the range here. We'll come on to the results of that shortly, but these are the models I gathered data for on the Foresight Sports GC Quad launch monitor using premium golf balls. They're all set to 15 degrees apart from the Ping G410, which is set to 14.5 degrees because it only has up or down 1 degree of loft adjustability, so I wasn't able to spec that exactly how I wanted to. But basically they're all in the stock stiff shaft options. Before we talk about the launch monitor data we've got, which is only going to be a relatively small part of this comparison test, let's talk about the looks of these fairwoods, because the looks play an important part in the confidence you get over the ball and often the resulting shot as well. Now you'll see, looking at the looks of them down here at address, there's a whole host of different colours and shapes and sizes. Unquestionably the smallest of them all is the Cobra King F9 Tour. Obviously, being the Tour model is slightly smaller, and there is a standard model which is a lot larger, and this also has a slightly different colouring to the standard model, and because it's got a much smaller head, actually does feel a lot longer than the others. Just something to bear in mind if you do choose a Tour option. There's also the TaylorMade M5. This is probably one of my favourites. It's got that matte finish on the crown, the longer silver section which helps alignment. It's got a very pleasing look to it indeed. Then we've got here the Titleist TS3, lovely neutral shape, very simple, classic, like often we expect from Titleist. Probably one of the easiest to align because of the full length grooves here on the face, just help me align the club face a little bit easier. Then we've got the Callaway Epic Flash. This has the flash face graphics here, and obviously because it's a bit more lofted than the driver, those are more obvious with the driver, and it is a very, very busy club face indeed. And when you combine it with that grey line on the crown, it's probably one of my least favourite looking fairwoods out of all these. My other one that I don't really like the look of is the Ping G410 with those really thicker turbulators. The shape's nice, it sits really flush to the ground. I like the matte finish on the crown, but those turbulators for me don't really do an awful lot. And finally, the Mizuno ST190. Now this is the TS version, which has the loft adjustability in it, so you can go from 13 up to 17 degrees. I really like the look of this fairwood, very simple. It's got the carbon fibre pleating visible there, graphics around the perimeter, sits down really nice behind the ball. Not the easiest to align with the black crown and the black face, but a very pleasing shape nonetheless. So that's kind of the top line view of what we're testing, what they look like down by the ball. Let's dive into the launch monitor data to see where the differences in performance lie between these 6 models. Okay, so I've got some key numbers here on the iPad for the test that I did on these 6 fairwoods at Woburn Golf Club using the GC Quad launch monitor. Worth noting, I used the same reputable premium golf ball, and the data for these shots was all taken from the deck, so I wasn't using a tee here, but we did do some additional testing using a tee, which we'll come on to a bit later. Some standout figures for me are all around ball speed, starting with the Mizuno, was one of the fastest of these 6 fairwoods at 151.4 miles an hour on average. Just behind that was the Ping at 150.7 and the Epic Flash at 150.1. Those were the 3 that really stood out for me in terms of ball speed and actually felt the fastest off the face when I hit them, so I wasn't surprised to see these numbers. Interestingly, the TaylorMade M5 launched the highest. It's got that 65 gram steel weight there that adjusts the shot shape, so lots of weight low and back in that club head, so kind of not really surprised to see it launching the highest at 14.7 degrees, and just behind it was the Ping at 14.3, which actually had the lowest static loft of all of the models, so that was also a little bit surprising. Moving on to carry distance, with Mizuno having the most ball speed on average, it's not surprising to see that Mizuno ST190 was the longest carry on average at 254.4 yards, topping out at 259 with a total of 284. So really impressive distance from the Mizuno. It does have quite low spin as well at 2,700, so arguably it's kind of more suited to tee shots than it is fairway shots, but it does come in another version which is slightly larger, the standard version, which might get the ball up in the air a little bit easier. We don't have any club data for this test, but I'm confident the strikes were the best with the Mizuno and the Callaway, which probably gives us an indication about why the ball speeds and distance were the best with those two. And obviously when you're hitting a fairwood off the deck, you're not going to hit an awful lot of good shots. There were some gross mishits in there which I did delete, but they weren't all obviously out of the sweet spot, so perhaps I did strike those a little bit better than the others. The Epic Flash was consistently long, average of 251 carry, a best of 256. And the others were just more consistent. The Ping, the Titleist were very consistent. I wasn't having a big drop off in ball speed and distance there with those ones. They weren't kind of stand out in terms of distance, but they weren't short either. Interestingly, the Cobra was a very good all-rounder as well, even though it's got that smaller head. Average carry of 246 yards, which was very good. Best of 255, which is one of the longest shots I hit. So, you know, all of them were hovering around just under the 150 miles an hour ball speed. There wasn't really kind of a weak link, if you like, in this fairwood test. But data only plays a very small part of how you go about choosing a fairwood. For me, they need to do a lot of different jobs. You need to test them in a lot of different scenarios, which I did over the course of today here at Bishopsgate, on the driving range, on the golf course, off the tee, off the deck. And there are some other conclusions I can definitely draw with these fairwoods. First of all, hitting on the range, it was noticeable that TaylorMade M5 hit the ball the highest. You know, the peak height, the ball flight window was clearly higher than the others. And interestingly, I had a go with the TaylorMade M6 as well. Didn't get any data with that, but this was for me one of the easiest fairwoods to hit. It got the ball up in the air similar to the M5, but just seemed to do it more often for me. I wasn't struggling to strike the ball, even off the deck, hitting it really cleanly, had a nice lightweight feel, it had a low spin flight, really hot off the face, and that was actually one of my favourite fairwoods to hit on the range off the deck. When it came to hitting shots off the deck, the Cobra King F9 Tour did stand out for me in terms of turf interaction. It's got the baffler rails on the sole, which does help the sole glide through the turf. It wasn't digging at all. So if I was to use my fairway wood mostly off the fairway, I would lean towards this Cobra King F9, and it's got the adjustable loft on there, so I can dial in the ball flight that I want. Maybe I'd want to add some loft to get a bit more height and a bit more stopping power into par fives if I was using it more off the deck. If I was to pick a fairway wood for out and out distance playability off the tee, it would be the Mizuno or the Callaway. I'd worry about the spin of the Mizuno slightly, but it was very impressive. These new ST190 woods, the driver and the fairway wood from Mizuno, are very low spinning. Previously in the past, Mizuno drivers and woods have actually been a little bit too high spinning, and they've really brought it down with this new model, and I think a lot of golfers will benefit from that lower spin to get them more distance. The Ping really stood out for me for forgiveness, with that high density tungsten weight there at the back, really pulling the weight low and back, helps get the ball up in the air, but also adds stability to the club face. So I felt like off-centre hits weren't really penalised with this fairway. So if I was looking for consistency, maybe your ball striking's a little bit off, the Ping is a much more user-friendly option. I tested the Callaway Epic Flash. Remember, it comes in the Standard and Sub-Zero. Both of them have this jailbreak technology, which does seem to boost ball speeds, and when you combine it with the new flash face, it is a very fast fairway, and probably one of the hottest feeling fairways on test. Definitely struck it very well in this test. Did miss it to the left a little bit. That might be the shaft again. I wasn't custom fitted for any of these fairways. This is just the stock stiff options. So obviously, if you're going to get try a new fairwood, you make sure you get fitted if you're going to put it in the bag. Finally, the one thing to talk about is the Titleist. This is probably one of the better looking fairwoods on test, but didn't deliver the ball speed that I was expecting, given that the driver is very, very impressive. It's very fast, one of the fastest drivers on the market. I didn't get the ball speed I was hoping for from the Titleist TS3 fairwood. It's just an interesting observation there. 6 fairwoods, very impressive. Hopefully that's given you a guide as to the type of performance each one of them offers. I reckon when you try as many different models as you can to really dial in your ball flight, get the one that's going to suit your game the best. In terms of value for money, the Cobra King F9 stands out just ahead of the Callaway Epic Flash and the TaylorMade M6 as 3 of the top performers overall, as well as being 3 of the least expensive on test. So the big question you're probably all wondering is, I've tested 8 different fairwoods, the 6 here and some additional options on the course and on the range. If I had a gun to my head, which model would I pick and put in the bag for 2019? It's obviously an incredibly tough decision, but for me it would have to be the TaylorMade M6, even though I didn't get the data to back up whether it was longer than these models on the test. For me, hitting it on the range, I was the most comfortable with it. I struck it the best. It gave me a nice combination of height, which I think should stop the ball into par 5s, but it didn't seem like it was spinning up. It just felt like it was the best of everything. I felt like I could hit this in different scenarios. It felt fast. The turf interaction was good, very clean. Sits really nicely behind the ball, very easy to align, and comes in at a very reasonable £269. So for me, that was the best all-rounder. Remember, it comes in a D-type option as well if you need a little bit more draw bias to combat your slice. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed that fairwood comparison test. Of course, we'd love to hear what you think. Did you like the way we did it? Hit the like button if you did like it. Comment on the video. Which one do you like the look of? Which one are you most interested in trying? I'd love to hear from you. But for now, from Bishopsgate Academy here in Orlando, it's goodbye.